You know, some journeys take years, even decades to actually begin. And when they finally do, well, they rarely start the way you imagined. We're about to dive into a travel story that was literally 15 years in the making. A trip to Beijing that turned out to be all about unexpected discoveries, culture shock, and a whole lot of unfinished business. Okay, so this timeline really lays it all out. The story kicks off way back in 2009 with the first trips to China. But Beijing was always that one city that just kept getting away. You can see the grand plan for 2015, this epic Beijing to Mongolia adventure, and it gets totally scrapped for a Paul McCartney concert of all things. Then, boom, you fast forward 9 years to 2024, and an out-of-the-blue business trip is what finally makes it happen. Life's got a funny way of working things out, huh? So, here's the roadmap for this story. We're going to start with how this trip finally came to be, then jump into the first night's pretty intense culture shock. From there, we'll dive headfirst into Beijing's drinking scene, take a lightning-fast tour through history, and then wrap it all up with why this super long-awaited trip still felt, well, kind of incomplete. Right, so how did this trip, which was supposed to be this amazing overland journey to Mongolia, finally go down? Well, not as some grand adventure, that's for sure. It was something way more sudden and, let's just say, a little less welcome at first. I mean, just look at the difference here. On the left, you've got the dream, right? An epic, self-planned adventure. And on the right, you have the reality, a sudden business trip in the middle of winter with everything planned by someone else. This is just such a classic traveler's tale. It wasn't the adventure he planned, it was the one life decided to give him. And this quote just captures that initial feeling perfectly. You can almost hear the sigh behind that ha-ha. This wasn't the big, triumphant arrival in Beijing that had been dreamed up for years. Nope. This was a chilly, work-focused obligation. Okay, so he finally arrives, and that first night in Beijing is just a total clash of sensations. We're talking a brutally cold welcome immediately followed by the surprising warmth of an absolutely incredible meal. Just try to imagine it. You step out of the station after waiting 15 years for this moment, and this is what hits you. -2 degrees Celsius. That number alone tells you everything you need to know about that welcome. It was cold. But get this, it turns out -2 doesn't even do it justice. The author actually says that a snowy mountain resort felt warmer than this. It was the wind, the Beijing wind, that just made it feel so much colder, like it was cutting right through you. But then, a complete 180. That piercing cold was immediately contrasted by the absolute bliss of authentic Peking duck. And listen, this isn't just a comment about a nice dinner. This is a full-on revelation. It was so good that it completely ruined a version he used to love back in London. Now that is a powerful first impression. So, with the workdays finished, the nights became a chance to experience a legendary part of the local culture, one that involves tiny little glasses, heated pots, and some seriously potent spirits. The evenings pretty much revolved around two very different drinks. First up, you've got baijiu, which is clearly the heavy hitter here. And then you have huangjiu, which seems way more gentle. The key differences are all right there. Look at the alcohol percentage and how they're served. One is a tiny, powerful shot, and the other is sipped warm, almost like a tea. Okay, let's just pause on this number for a second. 52%. To put that in perspective, that's way stronger than your average vodka or whiskey. And that one little detail is the key to understanding the whole culture around drinking it. And this is that classic aha moment, right? You see the tiny glass and you kind of wonder, what's the deal with that? Then you taste the 52% alcohol and everything suddenly clicks into place. That small glass isn't about being cheap. It's about pure survival. So on the very last day, with time ticking down before a flight, the trip included what was basically a race through centuries of history. It was anything but a deep dive. But even that quick sprint through the Forbidden City left a really memorable and kind of quirky impression. You know, instead of just listing off a bunch of dynasties or architectural facts, the thing that really stuck with the author was this one peculiar little detail about the emperor's personal life. It's a great reminder of how those small, human stories are what make history feel real. So the question is, how did the emperor choose who to spend the night with from his many, many concubines? Well, it wasn't really about romance or who was his favorite. It was something way more detached, almost like a procedure. And there it is. It was a lottery, a simple drawing of lots. Out of everything you could possibly see on a rush tour of the Forbidden City, that is the quirky, human detail that stuck. It just goes to show you don't need a lot of time in a place for it to leave a lasting mark. So after all that, the freezing cold, the amazing food, the powerful drinks, the race through history, you'd think the journey was complete, right? Well, it turns out the author was left feeling like something pretty important was still missing.
After everything, this was the feeling that lingered. Despite finally getting to Beijing, sending the postcard, even grabbing some KFC at the airport, it just didn't feel like the real visit. It was more like a taste, an appetizer, but definitely not the main course.
So, in the end, this trip wasn't really the end of a 15-year wait. It was actually the start of a whole new plan. It proved that a proper return trip was absolutely necessary, but as a traveler this time, not as an employee. And apparently, there's also a new side quest for a Hard Rock t-shirt. So the journey isn't over, it's just evolved. This story of a long-delayed trip finally happening in the most unexpected way, it's just so relatable. And it really makes you think about your own plans, doesn't it? So we'll leave you with this question to ponder. What's the journey that you're still waiting to take?